your host, Cain Stevens. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cain Stevens Super Show. I am your super host once again, Cain Stevens. And if you don't know by now, you've obviously been hiding somewhere in a remote location. So come on out of there and join me for my next guest. We've been laying out the great guests for you guys, and this guy is going to be no different. He does improv comedy. It looks like he does some consulting, some leadership type stuff. He also talks. He seems to be a guy who knows a lot about Myers-Briggs personality, which I have no idea what that is. So I can't wait to ask him what the hell we're even talking about. And he talks about having emotional intelligence, which I may have none. So we'll talk about that too. So with all that being said, let's bring my guest on, Alan Mueller, everybody. Let's give him a
Hey, I am here. I'm ready to chat.
You're ready to chat. So, what part of the world are you sitting in right now, Alan?
I live in North Carolina, and I've spent pretty much my whole life here, but at some point lived in the mountains, which was gorgeous. If people have not visited the Appalachian Mountains in North Carolina, visit. It's beautiful, beautiful. But now I'm in kind of the big middle of the state.
Yeah. Man, that's awesome. I love talking to people from all over the world. I love the internet because we can get on here and we can talk to each other. Where before it'd be like a phone conversation.
Yep.
Now we get to look at each other, which can be scary for you, but not for me. So
it's a whole different world, man. I remember in college, I went to college like in the 90s, and in the basement of the library, they had a teleconferencing room. And so you had to, the internet wasn't really there. I mean, I guess the government had the internet, somebody had the internet, but the average person. And you would go to this room and they would teleconference with a professor from a university like 3 hours away or something. And I thought, oh man, we're living in the future. And now I can do it on my phone.
That's so crazy. It's like all the greatest technology starts out like, all the superhumans and cyborgs and everybody at the top have it. And eventually they shuffle it down to us poors. I'm not saying you are, but I am. And
right. And you just the trickle down technology. That's what it is. Yeah.
So man, I'm really excited to talk to you about your improv comedy for one. I want to get in the Myers-Briggs thing, but I want to allot us some good time because I'm sure you're going to have to teach me and my listeners exactly what that is. But let's talk about your past in improv comedy. Like, how long have you been doing that?
Yeah, so I was part of a troupe for 9 years. When the pandemic happened, I sort of took a break, but had some amazing teachers. The comedy club's called the Idiot Box. And it's kind of funny because when I joined, about half the troupe had PhDs, which is hilarious. Like we had a British literature professor and a geology professor. The owner of the club, he has a PhD in neurobiology from this place called Duke University. I know, right? But also runs a comedy club with his wife, right? And he and his wife are awesome teachers. And I got into it by accident. The funny part is I worked at a college. I ran the career center, so I'm helping college students get internships, get jobs, apply to grad school, just career stuff, right? And that's boring. It's a boring kind of office. And I had worked in other more kind of fun offices, and I had a chance to make a class. And so I thought, how can I make this fun? And I had read up on improv comedy, and so I made a class called Improv Comedy and the Art of the Job Interview. Because every job interview you'll do your whole life is improv, right? Nobody gives you a list of the questions ahead of time.
Right.
And so what I would tell students, I'm like, look, if you can do a scene about Beyonce arguing with Joe Biden about the price of peanut butter in Brazil, or whatever crazy scene we've come up with in the improv thing, tell me about yourself from an interview is going to seem so easy, right? You're going to be like, I just did a thing with Nicki Minaj in a canoe in Japan. Like the scenes that we come up with are just off the wall. It's whatever the audience wants. And for me, I'm like, I can use that mental gymnastics to help people get better at being the most amazing job interviewees ever, right? And oh my gosh, I mean, like I got to watch them from start to finish as they like grew. And so when I started teaching the class, I was like, I better up my game. I better learn learn improv. So I took an improv course, like an improv, like a workshop at this club. And, at the end, they were like, hey, you should audition. So I auditioned and made it into the troupe. And for the first year, I was pretty much the bench player, like the basketball metaphor. I was the 12th person on the bench. I didn't get much playing time. And then for the next year, and this is why these teachers were so awesome. We had like family friendly shows at the club, and it's a comedy club, so most of what happens there is not kid appropriate. But for the improv troupe, they made us the new people be in those family friendly shows because they wanted us to prove we could do legit improv and not just drop an F-bomb, right? And
Yeah.
so like, and then once you proved you could do it, then you could go to all the shows. But that made you work extra hard because when you're asking the audience for a suggestion, if they say something like they, if they don't know they're at the family friendly show, and we're like, what name of profession? They're like stripper. Okay, so immediately the scene begins. Hey, I'm Bubba, and this is Jethro. Jethro is my friend. He's from the other county over. The painters are going to be here at 4 p.m., but we're here to strip your house because you need to get a good strip in before you can do any painting, right? So we're strippers, right? We're paint strippers. And so you had to, when you knew that somebody might have like their 12-year-old in the audience, you had to work harder, right? Your brain had to just had an extra level to it where you're like, you know what? If I wouldn't see this in a PG movie, I'm not going to put it on the stage. But then, of course, once you're a veteran, they put you in all the shows, and I've done some crazy, crazy stuff on stages.
You were basically like the Steve Kerr of of the troop, right? I mean, they bring you in, you're hitting threes, you're nailing it, you're knocking it out of the, basically just killing it like the Bulls in the '90s. But the thing is about improv and comedy in general, because I mean, I'm a musician, I'm not a comedian. Yeah, obviously, I
Okay.
try to be funny, and most people probably think I'm an idiot. But that being said, you guys, you have to think extremely fast, on your feet, and you're kind of a different mind. Like as a musician, people think that a musician could just go out and be a jukebox; they can play anything. But that's
Right.
not necessarily true. A lot of us are very, very precise, and we have to practice over and over again to nail this one part. And what I mean. So how do you guys hone your craft when you have to be so fast?
Well, I tell you, and so I'm a musician too, and so I was a trombone player for many, many years. I played a little bit of piano, but when you think about jazz, right? When you think about what jazz does, you've got the page, you've got the music, but then you've also got like sections where it's like you're going to improv something, and so to improv in jazz, you have to know your scales forward and backward, man. You gotta feel comfortable with the groove, and so with improv, it's the same thing. It's like layups. It's like drill after drill after drill after drill. The other thing that's really cool though is that stand-up comedy terrifies me. I tried an open mic night one time when I did stand-up. Right, I had jokes prepared and I came with the jokes, and if they're funny, I get the laughs, and if they're not, that's also my fault. With improv, the thing that's so cool is it's a team, right? So if any of your listeners have seen Whose Line Is It Anyway, it's the same concept. There will be like 4 or 5 of us up on stage. It's a team, but also you ask the audience for the suggestions for the scene. Like you're like, hey, name an interesting place in the world and name this, name a world leader or whatever. And so the audience shares responsibility for if the scene is good or not, right? So in other words, sometimes the audience comes up with something that's so absurd that I'm like, yeah, this is going to be hilarious. It's going to be hilarious when we do this. And then sometimes they come up with something that I'm like, I don't know how we can make this funny. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But if it doesn't, they know that they share the responsibility. And so it's a little different than stand up, right? The stand up comedian is fully in charge of their content. With improv, first of all, it's a team. So if I'm having an off night, my scene partner might be doing better. Or if I have an idea for a scene and they don't, we'll roll with my idea. But the other part of it is the audience is part of the show, right? And so that makes it different.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, man, if any of your listeners get a chance to take an improv class, I became a better public speaker, a better teacher when I would teach in the classroom occasionally, just a better listener as a human because you got to listen in improv. You got to listen at lightning speed to get a scene.
Right.
And so and so it's funny because I also am a leadership development consultant in my other world, and like listening is fundamental in both worlds, right? Like I actually use improv comedy to teach people how to be better leaders, because if you don't listen on the front end, the scene's going to suck or you're going to be a bad leader, right? Like you got to listen. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, do you watch a lot of comedy? I mean, do you have any favorites that are killing the comedy game right now? I'll share my
So
thoughts on who I like, but I want to hear yours.
yeah, so I believe it or not, I don't watch that much comedy. I do I have over my lifetime. I watch Who's Line. I love watching improv, and then also on NPR they've got Wait Wait Don't Tell Me, which is also kind of an improv kind of thing. In terms of stand-up people who are names, my favorite was Mitch Hedberg. I don't know if you've heard of Mitch Hedberg. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yep, yep. He has since passed. And when he passed, I think Dimitri Martin, who's a Canadian, he sort of took up that mantle, and because he has that dry delivery and the jokes that have the extra layers, right?
Right.
I've got a few college degrees, and I'm not a capital I intellectual, but I hang out with intellectuals, if that makes sense. And Dimitri Martin, his joke is like it's funny, and then later it's like, oh man, was that deep as well? That's like how Mitch Hedberg was, right?
Yeah.
And then the most recent one, and then I want to do a side story after I hear yours. But the most recent one that I've started liking is a guy named Gary Gulman.
Hmm.
And if you've never heard his shtick on how the post office abbreviations happened, it's comedy genius. But I want to tell a story about Gary Goldman. But first, I want to hear about some of who your favorite comedians are.
First of all, Gary Goldman is fantastic. I mean, his special where he talks about his crippling depression. It
Yes.
it was such a different special. My wife and I watched it, and it wasn't your typical because there was like it would cut over to like certain scenes and like things in his life, and I just thought, man, this guy is next level. Like that is so. I mean, to share that with everybody and how
Yeah.
like something so. I mean, this guy had it bad. I mean, he was getting
Yeah.
like the worst of the worst.
Oh yeah.
Shins, and it was like it was killing his career, killing his life, and he came back, man. So I definitely want to talk about Gary Goldman. For me,
Yeah.
I like Tom Segura, I like Bert Kreischer, I like Nate Bargatze. Those
Okay.
guys are kind of like I think they're pretty relatable. I mean, I like all comedy. My wife and I will probably watch at least a comedy or two, on Netflix or whatever a week. Uh,
Yeah.
it's just, man, especially with two adults who suffer from depression, it brings us out of it every time. It's like, man, let's put on a comedy. I'm tired of watching people get their heads cut off on, Game of Thrones. As much as I love Game of Thrones, we got to get something
Right.
like that, right?
Something light. Yeah. And I tell you, talking about what it can do for folks dealing with depression, anxiety. Um, to me, I mean, laughing and being musical make learning stick better. Like I'm going to tell you, I cannot remember a single thing I read in ninth grade, but for some reason, I've got Bon Jovi's "Slippery When Wet" album memorized from beginning to end, like all the B side, like everything, right? And jokes are like that too, and funny moments. And so, like as someone who is in these two worlds, where I'm always kind of trying to get teams to learn how to be better leaders, communicators, that kind of thing. I know that comedy helps it stick, if that makes sense. And so people will remember something that was funny, and that will help the concept stick. Same with music. Like when you've sung something 100 times, it's in you, right? It won't pop out. Can I tell you my little caveat about Gary Goldman? Because
Yeah,
this
I
is
had to hear it.
great. And this is going to have some mild spoilers if your listeners have not seen The Mandalorian. So prepare yourself, right? And some of y'all might need some explanation if you were born after like 1987 as to like who some of these people are. But Gary Goldman, I think it might have been in the Depression one that he did. He talked about when he was young. He was like, I grew up in the 70s and 80s. He's like, and for men, we didn't have like a lot of models for masculinity, right? And his joke was we had Clint Eastwood, who's this hyper masculine, like, do you feel lucky? Well, do you punk? And then Richard Simmons, who was this very effeminate, like aerobics instructor guy on TV, right? And Gary Goldman's like, man, the current generation's got like Mark Ruffalo and Paul Rudd and David Schwimmer, these like sensitive guys who aren't super effeminate and aren't super macho. They're just, you know. So I heard him do that special, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty deep. That's pretty deep. Then I watched The Mandalorian, and I'm gonna take you. I saw Return of the Jedi as a kid in third grade. Everybody in the neighborhood. This is when people still clapped at movies, and when Darth Vader came out, everybody clapped. And I always identified with Luke. Always identified with Luke. And there were other kids I knew who Han Solo, right? But we watched Luke Skywalker through those movies in the 70s and 80s go from whiny farm kid to like badass Jedi, and then the movie just ends. and then it's over, and it's like, oh, he's finally a Jedi, yes, and then that's it, cut off, we're done. So the Mandalorian, and there's some spoilers, so if you're listening and you haven't watched the Mandalorian yet, pause it. In towards the end of one of the seasons of the Mandalorian, Luke has an appearance, and he's like CGI de-aged and whatever, and he has his unbelievable badass moment, right? And I watched that video with like reaction videos of all these grown men, these 30, 40, 50-year-old men, their reactions, and their tears are streaming down their faces as they watch Luke have this moment, right?
Right.
And then I remembered back to Gary Goulman, and I was like, aha, this is it. There were all these Gen X guys like me who we had been waiting for this other model of what it meant to be a man that wasn't like Clint Eastwood, blah blah blah, and wasn't Richard Simmons. It was Luke, right? And we were waiting for that. And seeing these guys cry. I mean, I got choked up. I didn't quite cry, but I could easily have. And so I think Gary Goulman was onto something. And when I saw that Star Wars scene, I was like, yep, it's deep. It's deep.
It is, and that you can get deep in comedy. I mean, if you really dissect these guys and what they're saying, I mean, they are taught. They're hitting some of. I mean, even Mitch Hedberg. I mean, especially Mitch.
Oh
Hedberg,
yeah.
they're hitting all of these things are happening in our lives. And what's life really? Life is just us trying to figure out why the hell we're here, what the hell we're doing, right? And
Right.
they
Right.
explain it so well, but then they make you laugh on top of that. They bring you out of your shell. It's so
Yeah.
amazing, man. But one thing that really killed it for me though. So I went to a massive comedy show. It was the Fully Loaded festival that Burt Kreischer did here in Lincoln.
Yeah.
One of the best. I left with one of the best feelings I've ever left at any show. And I've been to thousands of music shows. And
Yeah.
it was just there were just so many good comedians, but the only thing that killed it for me is there was a girl sitting next to us, and she didn't like any of the jokes. You know what I mean? Because
Oh yeah.
it hit her and it sucked her in the gut, for the wrong reason. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
they made a joke about somebody with Down syndrome. Yes, that's not good, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we're at a comedy show. We kind of expected
Right.
we were adults, and this
Yep.
chick, she just the whole time, she was like, it was like, what am I thinking of here? It was like having a commentator next to you, but it was like the negative guy, like the guy on wrestling that's like
Yep.
heel, commentator. It was like that the whole time. Like, oh, I
Yep.
can't believe they said this.
And I tell you, it's tricky for stand-up comedians in particular because I mean, there's this like cancel culture thing sort of, but it's more like one of the best rules is always punch up, right? Always punch up in comedy, right? And so if someone's up there on stage and they've got a disability, right, and then they're making jokes about disabled people, well, they're in the neighborhood, right? They've earned that, so to speak, right?
Right.
With other folks, you got to be more careful because if white people get up on stage and make jokes about black people, that yeah, come on, friends, let's we're past that time, right? But if black people get up on stage and make jokes about white people, it's punching up, right? Like it's in other words, these folks don't have to, no cops pull me over just because I look funny, right? Or I look, and so, but I mean, you gotta find that balance, right? You gotta find that balance of can you get a little edgy. And one of the keys is if you ever watched a roast, have you ever watched people do like a roast?
Yes, many of them.
One of the keys to a roast is you have to establish with the audience that the person you're roasting, say that you're roasting John Cena or say that you're roasting, Eddie Murphy or whatever. If the audience believes that everyone doing the roast deeply respects that person, has a deep level of respect for them, they'll let them get away with all the trash talk. And so when you're thinking about the disabled community, if you're thinking about people that have differences from whoever you are as the comedian, if you can establish a deep respect first in your act, you can get away with some of the edgier things, if that makes some sense, right? If you don't establish that early on, you're going to have the woman sitting next to you going, oh yeah, he shouldn't be saying that. so clearly whoever that comedian is had not established that, oh yeah, no, yeah, two of my siblings are in the Special Olympics, this, that, or the other. I don't know. Something that gave him some insight or some credibility before going over to that side, right? Yeah. It's a balancing act. Yeah.
Well, roasts are so unbelievably, and they've been great forever. I mean, Don Rickles doing it years ago was a kid.
Oh yeah.
I mean, watching that stuff is such gold. But then, I mean, Jeff Ross, I mean, he set the precedent, in our time of really being the the true roast master. And I'm sure there's other guys in other roasts, that we don't see that are, just as good. But I think Jeff Ross did a pretty good job. But man, you got to have a thick skin to be in that. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, yeah. It's and again, I think that the key is you only invite your friends.
Yeah.
I think I saw Ann Coulter get roasted once, and I don't want to get too much into politics, but I'm pretty sure that half the people doing the roast really, really don't like her. And
Right.
so it doesn't make the roast as much fun when you're like, no, yeah, are y'all just doing burns? And she's just desperate for money, so she's doing this. Like I don't know what's really going on here, but I sense that at least half the people she had up on stage roasting her really didn't like her, right? And that doesn't float well for a roast. Yeah.
Regardless of, like, your political beliefs, I mean, like the big Trump roast was legendary because it was right before he ran for president. And
Right.
you could tell a lot of people didn't really care for him, but a lot of people
Yeah.
gave him high praise. And he shot it back pretty good with writers,
Right.
of course. But the thing
Right.
about Trump is everyone knows Trump is obviously a personality. This guy can shoot back, but he can just be so darn mean, at times. And that has nothing to do with political. I mean, just listen to some of his.
He's mean. He's mean. Yep. That's straight up. That's separate from his political platform. He's just a mean dude. Yeah.
I would hate to debate him. Like, I mean, that's like the ultimate roast, and he just stands up there and he just dunks on everybody, doesn't he? Like,
Yeah.
it's so great.
Yeah. Except the weird thing is that, like, I don't know if you remember your middle school gym or your high school gym, but there's always the goal, the basketball goal on one end, the basketball on the other end. But in a lot of my gyms, they had two on either side as well, right? And I feel like Trump, when he's trying to be funny and you're playing a game and it's going back and forth, up court, down court, he goes and like dunks on one of those little side baskets that doesn't get you any points. It's like, look what I just did, y'all. And I'm like, but that's not even one of the regular goals that regular humans use in the basketball games. So I don't know what you're doing, man. I mean, because it's unguarded and it's easy, and he can just slam it and think he's like, all crazy. Yeah. Anyway.
His responses are almost childlike, just like in junior high. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
some of his
Oh, yeah.
responses and the mean things he says are literally what we would say like at the lunch table if we right before we threw coleslaw at the kid we didn't like.
I literally just saw someone post on Facebook. I can't believe that I just saw an 80-year-old man picking on an 82-year-old man because of his stutter. Like what world are we living in here, right? Where are the grown-ups? Where are the grown-ups? But anyway, yeah. But yeah, roasts, I think, the key is if you can show that you really respect the person, right? And same with those jokes where you're sort of what could be out of bounds is if you establish a deep respect for a community.
Right.
There's a little bit more latitude for some of those comedians to go there a little bit sometimes, but yeah.
Well, with improv, didn't some of the greats come from improv? I mean, didn't John Candy and
Oh my gosh.
Martin and all of these
Oh,
guys come from improv before? I mean, the
oh
guys that are just
yeah.
the best, right? Everyone you could think.
Yeah. Tina Fey, I mean, like Amy Poehler, I mean, so many folks did improv, and Jordan Klepper, who's on the Daily Show. And like, it's one of the things that's so cool. And a lot of people don't realize this. And I didn't realize this. I used to just think improv is super creative people being creative, right? I would turn on the TV and I'd see Wayne Brady, and then I'd see Colin Mockery, and then they'd have guest starred Robin Williams, right? And I thought it was just creative people being creative. And then I learned that it's very rule based. It's very rule based, and you got to follow the rules. Some of the guys who were joining the troupe, like my last 2 years, we're doing a scene and they're going for the joke. They're going for a joke, and I'm like, don't go for the joke. Do not go for the joke. If your scene is that you are a housewife who's convinced that your husband is cheating on you, but the audience really knows he's shopping for your Valentine's present or whatever the thing is, commit to that scene and be that housewife to the 10th degree, but don't go after the joke. What's going to be funny is if you convince them that you're really invested, right? And so like Chris Farley, I don't know if you remember Saturday Night Live, Chris Farley, most of the stuff that was written for Chris Farley, I didn't think was funny, super funny writing. It was pretty good writing at Saturday Night Live, but he committed to it like nobody's business. His level of commitment was the thing, right? I'm watching some ACC basketball, and UNC basketball is big where I am, North Carolina, and man, their commitment on the court right now is huge. They are diving after every ball. They are not kidding around on that level. And so, like with improv, you commit to the scene, right? If my scene is that I'm George Bush's dog, then I'm George Bush's dog, and I'm going to be the best darn dog, but I'm not going to go after the joke. If I'm the most dog I can be, that becomes funny, right? And so, and the rules. One other thing that I'll tell you that's really cool. Um, a college that I worked at where I taught that course, that improv comedy and the job interview, we had a lot of autistic students, a lot of students on the autism spectrum that had come to that college because that our college had a reputation of being really good for those students. And the first time a couple of those students took my class, I had some anxiety. I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to need to change a lot? Because sometimes I would get a little note saying students need an environment free of distraction, and I'm like, this improv class could be called Distraction 101. Like this is what we're going to do is practice distraction. But when I mentioned to you that improv is rule based, those students overwhelmingly, I mean, the most of the students who were autistic were my best improvisers, easily my best improvisers. And it's a very diverse community. But one thing that I've learned that community shares is sometimes a challenge with picking up on nonverbals. Right, that's one of the commonalities. It's not everybody, but that's an amazing asset as an improv comedian. Like, in other words, if I'm trying to remember the 10 rules of improv comedy, say yes, build on what my scene partner just did. If I'm trying to remember these rules, and if I'm not autistic and I'm neurotypical or whatever it's called, and I get mixed and I see my scene partner frown, I might get in my head about it, right? And so these students, man, they surprised me in the best possible way because improv is rules. It's rules first, and then the creativity is just the frosting. It's just the icing, Yeah.
Some might look at the autistic, for example. Some might look at autism as a disability. I look at it as a heightened sense of awareness and like a gift, because a lot of these people, they can focus in on things that nobody
Yeah.
can. I mean, they're great at that games. They're great at all sorts of things. I mean, they just excel to another level. So I think in say 30 years from now, we're going to be calling this something completely different. We're going to be praising these people because they're on another level.
Yeah, yeah, and the great thing is that I was working with autistic folks who had made it into college, so they had the skill set or whatever to navigate middle school and high school as an autistic person and to get through to the point of college. And I recognize that it's a very broad community, and some have this amazing talent like you're talking about, and others maybe that talent's harder to find or harder to discern. But I'm with you. I'm with you that it's like a superpower that is misinterpreted as a problem, right? For so many in that community. And so, but yeah, and again, my non-autistic students, they're to get them loose enough to be silly in a classroom to learn improv. They had to give up some of their like preconceptions about being cool, and they're worrying about what other people think. And most of my autistic students were like fearless in that regard. They're like, yeah, no, I'm gonna do the rules of improv. We're gonna make the best scene possible. Get out of my way. I'm not overthinking what my classmates think about me because I'm focused on these rules that we're establishing, and that's what we're doing. And it was awesome. It was so great. Yeah.
Well, we tend to shove down or push aside the people that we don't understand, and we instantly
Always.
tell them that they're different, so therefore they're disabled or they're wrong or
Yeah.
so we're gonna look at it in a different way. Well, when we come back from break here, because we have to take a break. I need to pause for a little bit of sponsorship and that sort of thing. We're going to talk about Myers-Briggs personality because I'm definitely dying to hear about that. And also, I want to get a little bit strange with you. You seem like a guy who might get strange with me. So we're going to talk about some of the other stuff that maybe maybe might make you cringe. Clutch your blankie tight.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Awesome, man. Well, when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more we'll talk a little bit more with Alan Mueller about all this stuff. But right now, we're going to pause for a commercial from the Elegant Sasquatch.
Hey there, grooming gurus. We've got something wild for you today. That's right, folks. Get ready to tame the untamed with products that redefine the beard game. Introducing the Elegant Sasquatch Grooming Company.
Elegant Sasquatch? That sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it?
Well, grooming should be an adventure, my friend, and with these products, you'll embark on a journey to the grooming wilderness.
So, what makes the Elegant Sasquatch so unique?
It's all about taking your beard from beastly to beautifully wild. Picture this: you wake up and your beard looks like it just got back from a spa day. That's the magic of their high end beard balms.
Spa day for the beard? Sign me up. And let's not forget their beard butters and oils. It's like giving your beard a tropical vacation. I'm talking about a beach party for your facial hair.
A beach party for the beard. This company's got the best marketing ever.
Oh, but we're not done yet, folks. The Elegant Sasquatch Grooming Company also has beard washes that make shower time a majestic experience.
Showering with Sasquatch? That sounds like a reality show.
It does, but seriously, listeners, if you want to sophisticate your outer beast, head over to elegantsasquatchco.etsy.com and use the code SUPERSHOW at checkout for an exclusive discount of 20% off.
You can also find them on Facebook and Instagram. Check them out, like them, and while you're at it, tell them the Super Show sent you.
All right, well, that was the Elegant Sasquatch commercial. For all you bearded gentlemen out there, and I'm talking to a beautiful bearded gentleman right now, you need to get your beard balms from the Elegant Sasquatch. You need to stay classy out there, guys. You don't want that egg sticking in that beard for too long. Those ladies don't want to suck the omelet out of your beard all the time. So,
and then, disgusting.
It is. And then we also have Roots Music Shop here in Lincoln, Nebraska. All you musicians out there, if you need your guitar restrung, if you need your guitar set up, if you need any of your instruments fixed, go there. Tell Ryan that Cain sent you, and I promise you he won't penalize you and charge you more. I swear he likes me. We have Stan Liberty with Liberty Contracting for all your concrete needs, everybody. So contact Stan. And then last but not least, we have Sly Ink Tattoo. So stop getting those tattoos from Becky's Boring Ink Emporium and go to Bryce and get a nice tattoo, not these stupid tribal tattoos that I got years ago that I wish I could brush off with a sander of some sort. So we have those are our sponsors. Thank you guys. I hope you guys didn't pause or fast forward or anything. I hope you actually listen to this stuff. So now we have my guest here. We have Alan Mueller from North Carolina. He's an improv comedian. And right now he's about to school me up on something that I have absolutely know nothing about, the Myers-Briggs personality. Alan, how are you doing?
I'm good. And I'm telling you, you actually know more about it than you think. If you've ever heard the term extrovert and introvert,
yeah,
you're sort of halfway there. And so, this goes back to this psychologist named Jung and this woman named Isabella Briggs Myers. And it's a personality test, right? So we take personality tests online all the time. But before the internet, right, back in at end of World War II, she was putting together this personality test. And so the first part is extrovert, introvert. And so, talking about how do we understand each other better? I'll tell you a funny story. I'm an extrovert, so I'm more outgoing, right? I'm a performer. I sing, I play trombone, I do improv, I do keynote speeches. That, I definitely love performing and I get energy from that. My wife's an introvert. And, so for her, she energizes by reading a book, watching a show with just me or just her best friend or whatever, more inward energy, right? And so the funny thing that I tell people is, the first 3 years of our marriage, I was like, honey, are you mad? Is something wrong? Are you mad? What's wrong? Right? Because as an extrovert, I'm projecting onto her that if she's quiet, there's some kind of problem, right? So one of the things I do is I work with universities and K-12 systems and corporations and city governments to try to build more understanding and get along better at the office, right? A few funny things I'll tell you. Sometimes I'll break the room into extroverts and introverts. So on one side of the room is all the very chatty people. And on the other side of the room are the people who are secretly going, please don't call on me, please don't call on me, please don't call on me, right? And I ask the question, I say, hey, extroverts, y'all loud, chatty people, how many of you put headphones in when you're in public and don't listen to any music? And the extroverts look at me. They are so confused. They're like, why would I have headphones in and not listen to anything, not listen to the Cain Stevens podcast, not listening to music? I'm not listening to anything. And I turn over to the introverts, and before I can get the question out, their hands are all slowly moving up, because introverts, they'll wear headphones out in public just without listening to a darn thing, because they just don't want to be bothered, right? They're like, leave me alone. I don't want to engage with strangers, right? And then I tell people, I'm like, you can multiply that times 5 if the introvert's also like a woman who's at the gym, right? I have those headphones on to just tell people, leave me alone. I am not here to talk to y'all, right? I'm just here to do my workout, right? So extrovert, introvert, when you think about it, we got to understand each other better, right? The extroverts are always talking about introverts are shy. I mean, maybe they are, but don't stop inviting them to hang out or whatever. So that's the first part of the Myers-Briggs. So far you've got that part, right? That's the pretty easy part.
I think that makes perfect sense so far.
Yeah. And I mean, that Jung thinks, and I think as someone who's certified in this, that we're born this way, right? My older son is super extroverted, right? He's majoring in musical theater in New York, right? My younger son is introverted. When he gets home, he needs an hour of me time before we can really talk to him, right? And so if I didn't think like this, I would probably just like think one of my kids was right and one was wrong, or one was normal, one was and I'm like, no, they're both normal in their own way, right? There's other parts of it too. The second part of the Myers-Briggs is how people absorb the world, and it's pretty much sensing versus intuition. Yeah. And I'll give you the real quick version on this. Sensing people, it's like they the facts, right? I show this picture in my workshops, and the sensing people are like, yeah, there's 3 blackbirds, 2 bluebirds, 4 rocks, 2 children. They're naming the things in the picture, right? Intuitive people, they look at the picture, they're like, yeah, there's some kids on a journey through Ireland. It's like Stonehenge. I think a hobbit's about to come around the corner. They're absorbing this. They're both looking at the same picture, but one of them's looking at the picture one little piece at a time, and one of them's looking at the story within the picture. Yeah. And so your audience right now, half of your audience is sensing, which is like they're picking up on the little details that we mentioned. The other half is intuitive. They're going to forget my name. They're going to forget some of the topics, but they're going to remember some kind of bigger, but like, yeah, they talked about like the comedian guy and masculinity, right? Like they're going to remember the theme and not the details. And like when I was in history class as a kid, oh my gosh, I could not remember the dates. I'm not sensing people, dates, sensing. Intuitive people, I don't remember any date. I don't remember any name, but I do remember that so-and-so that a person got assassinated, and then we had World War I, right? Like that's the big picture here, my friends. But that's some of it. That's scratching the surface. There's a little bit more to it too, but it's just that we're all wired differently. And if we know that, we can build better understanding, and I want to try to get people to go, not everyone is like you, right? Not everyone is exactly like you. And if you can give grace and patience to people who are different and just understand it in this language, you're going to be better. You'll be a better spouse. You'll be a better coworker, better parent, better whatever. If you can just kind of get over that everybody's supposed to be like you.
Well, I think you nailed it on this one. I mean, you hit the target. And the key here is, yes, trying to understand people, like just trying to understand everybody, and why, like the human mind is so interesting. I would say you probably need a third category for a guy like me. I sit in the middle of them, and I'll tell you why, because I'm introverted, as in I'll go to a store or something and I'll pop my headphones in. I'll be listening to music or something, but I don't want to talk to anybody. And it's not that I'm a jerk. I just feel so comfortable doing that. I'm that guy. But then on the other hand, everyone wants to come up and talk to me, and then I'll engage with them, and then I'll become an extrovert. I'll flip the switch and I'll be like, you found a freak here, that type of thing. So there is a middle ground, isn't there?
There sort of is, but you just said a key phrase. You said I flipped the switch. Mm-hmm. And so this is something that introverts talk about. They flip the switch. Extroverts, dude, they don't have a switch. So like the fact that you use that language shows me that you're an introvert who's just a very social introvert. Right. Like my younger son is a social introvert. So when it comes time to recharge, like after a tough day, when he needs to recharge or just get back from school, he still needs to go inward to recharge. But then when it's time to be social, he flicks the switch, right? But if you ask an extrovert, you flick a switch, they'll be like, "What, dude? What are you talking about? What do you mean a switch?" I'm always on. I'm always talking. All of my thoughts just pour out of my mouth all the time. I tell people that, like, you said when you're out shopping, I tell extroverts, I'm like, and introverts, I'm like, introverts, have you ever been reading that book and there's a character and you feel like you kind of know the character and you can't wait to get home and just find out what's going to happen with the character, right? Or it's a show you're binging and you can't wait to get home to see what's going to happen next with that character. For extroverts, every random person in the grocery store is a character with a story. And we're all sort of hunting for the random story, right? If I see somebody with a shirt from my university or whatever, like, it's just like, and my introvert kid, when we go to the grocery store, if we need to get in and out, he'll be like, can you not do that thing? And I'm like, what thing? He goes, where you just talk to people. And I'm like, okay, I won't do that thing. So I think, and it's interesting because I think society never pressures extroverts to be more introverted,
Right.
but society regularly pressures introverts to be more extroverted. And a lot of introverts are performers, especially in theater and music, because you have a script and a role, or you have sheet music and you know what to do. And introverts will love performing if they have a role, especially, right? And so that sort of connects to some of my leadership training, where all these managers who are sort of extroverts, whose introvert, the people they supervise who are more introverted, don't naturally seek out speaking opportunities or whatever. I'm like, but you've got to give those to them and you got to help them with that. But like, you don't ever think they can't do it because they're introverted. You know what I'm saying? But give them a role. Be like, hey, your role is you're running this meeting. Give them the safety and comfort of that role, and it'll make a huge difference when letting those in, because so many great leaders are introverts. So many great leaders are introverts, but the extrovert leaders get more camera time, right? That's just how it is, right? So yeah,
that are introverts, they especially in school, I would say yes, you're absolutely right. I am an introvert, because when I was in school, I would be the one that kids would probably even assume I was dumb in those classes, because I did not want to be called. I would bury my head. I'd pretend I was sleeping. I'd do anything I could to not get called to read. But I could read in front of people. I was very good at read. But when it came to like, oh, now please read this little paragraph, I would turn into stuttering Stanley, and I would just want to completely leave.
I love that you mentioned the classroom, because I tell people, I went to college a lot. It's not in my bio, but it took me 7 years to finish college the first time, 7. And my GPA was 2.16. So I was not a great college student at all. But one thing that's funny is every college syllabus I ever looked at, on the syllabus would be class participation, 10 points or 15 points or whatever it was. Every extrovert is like, yeah, 3 points. Woohoo! Yeah. Every introvert is like, oh, I wonder how much talking I'm going to have to do to get those points. Right. I wonder how much I really need those points, right? And so it's an interesting thing where extroverts, and Isabella Briggs-Myers talked about it almost like extrovert was like privileged in a sense, because we celebrate extroverts as a society. We just sort of do. And, I mean, when you consider that, like, high schools and colleges are trying to get more students to do more public speaking, I mean, extroverts probably get jazzed by it and excited by it, and introverts might get tired out by it. That doesn't mean we can't all learn it, but what it means is one group is getting energy from it and one group is getting drained from it, right? And we just got to know which is which to support them better, right?
Well, can extroverts be your poets, your Renaissance men, your people like that, or is that more of an introverts type of game? I mean, what do you think?
I think the Renaissance man thing is sort of more a function of some of the other parts of the Myers-Briggs. Like I mentioned, that intuitive sensing, that intuitive thing, right? And there's also more letters. Feeling versus thinking is one of them, and judging and perceiving is one of them. Because, like, for me, I have so many interests. I run an Etsy shop. I run a consulting business. I'm a part-time travel agent. I'm active in my community. I work with a nonprofit downtown. I DJ on the side, right? And all of these things, all these varied interests. And so, like, I think that's but they play to my extroversion, right? I'm not a Renaissance man in terms of sitting in the woods for 5 days meditating and coming out with a pearl of wisdom. That's not me, right? But definitely that, yeah. So I think that there are other parts of the Myers-Briggs that speak to that. The people with really diverse interests tend to be intuitive and feeling. We didn't talk about thinking and feeling, but intuitive feeling people, that combination, tends to be people who are just, really creative and really sometimes sort of out there and flighty, perceived as others as flighty.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of flighty is creative genius, right? Whereas these things where my Etsy shop, for example, I had this thought about, well, I have this skill set and I have this skill set and this interest and this interest. What if I put them all together, right? I'm of a certain age where I remember the Reese's peanut butter cups commercials, right? Once upon a time, Reese's peanut butter cups did not exist. And then at some point, someone's like, let's put chocolate and peanut butter together. And there was these commercials where somebody's walking down the street with chocolate, and then someone's walking down the street with a jar of peanut butter, as one does. And they just bump into each other, and they go, you got your chocolate on my peanut butter. You got your peanut butter on my chocolate. And then all of a sudden, it's Reese's peanut butter cups were born, right? And so it's that idea of, for my Etsy shop, it was this idea of, I started with these little arrows, these little distant signs, like how many miles is it to your happy place, right? So if your happy place is Myrtle Beach, or it's Cancun, or it's Vegas, or it's Disney World, or whatever. And I was like, I don't know that everybody knows how to use Google Maps well. I don't know that everybody knows how to use a laser etching machine well. I don't know that everybody knows how to design things well. And I know all three of those things. So I'm going to mash them together like chocolate and peanut butter and start a little shop where I'm selling these little arrow signs all over the world where people are like, my happy place is Vatican City. Well, yay, great. The funniest one was somebody said, I want to set 4 signs to Mordor, Mordor, the Shire, and 2 other mythical places from Lord of the Rings.
Right.
And I wrote to the customer and I said, those aren't on Google Maps. So how many miles do you want me to put on the side? Like I can't Google. I can tell you where Vegas is Google Map wise. I cannot tell you how to get to Mordor. Right. So we settled on New Zealand where they filmed the Lord of the Rings,
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, that's what you got to do to innovate, though. You got to come up with niche items that people want. But just like you said, I mean, nobody even thought about putting peanut butter and chocolate together. And they did,
right?
Everywhere. Like you can buy in every single type of candy that you could possibly imagine, right?
Where they're mixing peanut butter and chocolate, right? And so like there was a world once upon a time where that wasn't there. There's some great, I love reading these innovative people. This leads into some conspiracy theory stuff a little bit, but one is a guy named Thomas Friedman. He wrote a book called The World is Flat, and where he was predicting stuff about our economy that would change because of the internet. And he's like an economist for people who like me, who are totally not smart about economics. Like I am not cut out for that. But he explains it like it's like a newspaper article, right? He explains it to lay people like me. And, he's talking about the future of work and these kinds of things. And then the other one, and I think you're going to flip out about this guy. Have you heard of Ray Kurzweil? You know who Ray Kurzweil is?
I don't think so.
Okay, this dude, he was at MIT in the 70s. He told his professors, hey, professors, I'm going to teach a computer to read a book. The professors are like, you can't teach a computer to read a book. He said, watch me. Cain, have you ever used a scanner, like a flatbed scanner to scan a document?
Of course, yeah.
We can thank Ray Kurzweil. Yep, he invented that. The OCR technology where you can scan the picture and then it can turn it into words for your Word doc or whatever. That's also Ray Kurzweil. Here's the trippy thing. You ready? The dude has made like 36 big predictions about the future. He's a futurist. 36 big predictions. 34 of them have come true, 1 partially true, and 1 false. Out of 36 predictions, 34 true. His next prediction, sit down. I hope you're sitting down. His next prediction is that by the year 2032, we will have the technology to just reverse human aging.
Oh, wow.
Human aging will be over.
That is.
And it's like, should I call my 401k people right now and be like, I need to change my strategy because I might be living longer than I thought. This dude, he's one of those geniuses. And also, the other cool thing he made, y'all know Stevie Wonder, the musician Stevie Wonder, right? He loves Ray Kurzweil because Ray Kurzweil also invented, it's no bigger than an iPhone. People can, blind people or visually impaired people can go to a library and check out a Kurzweil reader. They wear it around their neck and open a book and it reads it to them. Oh. And he invented that, right? And so this dude, he's a genius, and he's so convinced that we're going to reverse human aging. He's taking all these supplements to make his blood more acidic because he thinks the first nanobots are going to need an acidic blood environment. So talk about some conspiracy stuff. One of his books is called The Singularity is Near. And oh my gosh, it blew my mind.
I'm definitely checking out more about this guy. I can't believe I haven't heard all of this stuff. But man, you definitely taught me and the listeners something today. I mean, those were great tidbits. I don't think this
Awesome.
guy's drinking baby's blood like these other people. I think doing it the right way. These guys, they're so stuck on the age thing, being like, hey, if we drink a bunch of baby's blood and eat baby parts, we'll be fine. But this guy has it all figured out. So do you think this guy's a time traveler? I mean, what do you think about this guy?
I just think I think in leadership world we call it lateral thinking, which is it's when you get down to it, lateral thinking is peanut butter and chocolate should go together, right? Yeah. Where you look at two things in the world that historically haven't matched up, and you're like, what if Google Maps design and geography nerddom coalesced in an Etsy shop? What if chocolate and peanut butter should have always been together and we just didn't know? And he would be like, well, what if we could teach a computer to read a book? What if we could, and so it's kind of the what if mentality, and it's I think that especially once AI comes into its own, I think the what if people are going to be highly sought after. The people who can do that what if thinking. Yeah.
Man, I was talking to somebody on another show today about Neuralink and how that's
yeah.
I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, that I absolutely don't want it. I think that it's going to be used as a as a control method for the poor, so to speak, like myself, where they can totally control you. And I know this is a conspiracy theory thing, but I think they're going to use it to send then the rest us that they're controlling to Mars, and they're going to make us colonize there, and they're going to make us do all this crazy stuff and work there.
Oh, wow.
That's
wow.
my theory on it. What do you think about Neuralink?
Well, it's funny because the guy Ray Kurzweil, he talks about this, and his book is called The Singularity is Near. He's like, there's going to be a time by the mid 2030s where we're going to have new words for people who aren't augmented, right? And so that's real. Like I'm predicting, like, for example, I got on AI generator to do some art stuff for this promo I'm doing for my consulting thing, and I'm using AI generator to generate graphics. And now some businesses are putting labels on things like, this was not AI generated, this was human generated. Have we ever had to use the words human generated before? Like, that's a new phrase that only exists because AI is there, right? Yeah. And so Kurzweil is saying, the singularity is the moment when humanity is not going to remember what it was like to be not augmented, right? But then to me, I am totally happy being augmented from the neck down. I do not want stuff in my brain, right? Give me the nanobots that are gonna prevent coronary disease. Give me the nanobots that are gonna make my bone density better. Give me those nanobots. But I do not need to be connected to the internet. I have my phone for that, and I will be. I'll be the crotchety old man. Get off my lawn. And my kids are gonna be like, I just downloaded it into my brain, and I'm like, I want a tablet. Where's my tablet? Download it in your brain if you want, my friends. But yeah.
When I see these Teslas blowing up people's garages and burning their houses down and stuff, the last thing that I want is something from the same guy in my head. Like, it's not happening.
Yeah. And I mean, the bottom line is that, like, that the real Neuralink thing is going to be one directional for a long time. And what I mean by one directional is, I used to watch Star Trek Voyager, and there was an episode where one of the guys had a Neuralink for a ship, where he could pilot the ship with his thoughts. And so in the short term, most of this stuff is going to be us giving electrical impulses to move a mouse, right? Or to type. It's going to be a long time before the downloading in is cracked, right? And that's a long way away, thankfully, because I don't want it to be turned into a zombie like that, right? And I'm on board with people getting a little implant where they could, because think about disabled people too, right? This could be huge for them to be able to move a mouse around with their mind and things like that, which that's the upside. But I don't want to be turned into an automaton. I don't think any of us do. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't think the future is going to go like everyone thinks it is. I mean, we talked about getting weird with each other. And we've started to dive into the weird a little bit. I don't think it's going to be the Skynet thing. I don't think that we're going to have robots that are going to kill everybody. I think if anything, if there's an end of all humanity thing, it's going to be us killing each other, right?
I mean, it could be, yeah.
but not to be so grim, but I mean, that's just what I believe. But then we have this other side, and you wanted to talk about aliens a little bit. Let's talk about aliens. All right, why do you care when they just came out. I keep asking people this, and I want an answer from everybody. Why don't we care all of a sudden that they're coming out and saying, hey, you know, we have been seeing UFOs. We're now calling them UAPs, and
Yeah.
pilots and top people who have, and they're coming, and nobody cares all of a sudden. They care about the dumbest things. Why is that?
You know, that is a great question. That's a good mystery. I remember I read the book 1984, but I never read Animal Farm. But from what I understand, 1984 was like the government's going to control you by scarcity of what, you know, and scarcity and work. And in Animal Farm, apparently, and I haven't read it, the government's going to control you by over entertaining you so much that they can get away with all kinds of stuff. And big news like, yeah, no, we know that aliens exist, right? That big news is like, well, yeah, but what are the Kardashians doing and what's happening on TikTok, right? Like that kind of mentality where and you know, I used to see Jay Leno and the late night hosts go out on the street and ask people geography questions. In what country is Hawaii, right? And there'd just be these people going, like, and so because entertainment is everywhere, you know, real life stuff. I mean, there's certain generations that have already checked out on the existential dread meter, right? Gen Z is like looking at what's happening with the planet and they're like, yep, I'm just going to make the most of it. What's on TikTok right now, right? The escapism thing, right? And so like when news about aliens comes out, I mean, you know, it's, and I mean, until I think it will change if and when people see one communicating, see one on camera in a way that's not questionable communicating, right? And that's when things will change. But here's the bottom line: there's this guy named Bajir. I don't know if you've heard of this guy.
Yeah.
He says he channels, yeah. And I've watched some of his stuff, and I got to tell you, he is either an exceptionally gifted con artist or he's legit. Like I don't know. He's if he's and again, I'm someone who does improv, and this guy, he's not some quack. He's like he worked for like George Lucas. He worked like on films and stuff, right?
Right.
But hearing him talk about aliens is enlightening to me. It's pretty enlightening because yeah, it's almost like they're all around us, but they're just in a fourth dimension that we can't perceive, right?
Well, and like I can remember listening to Art Bell back in the day a lot. You know, I was a huge Art Bell fan. Still am of Coast to Coast, but it's just not the same without Art there. You know, he's passed. But you know, he had a guy on. He had the guy, and I forget his real name, but the guy from like the Lear Jet Company or whatever, right? And he was
Yeah.
there, and he was talking about how, and everyone thought he was a kook because he was saying
Mhm.
that we know about all of these alien species.
Mhm.
There's like
Mhm.
90 some species that we know of. We know the good ones, we know the bad ones, we know the ones that want to harm us and all of this. And everybody just kind of like nervously looked away like, "Oh, this guy's a." But I mean, this guy was also part of a family and part of a company that had, you know, they had all of this information at their disposal to build these engines and all this. And you begin to wonder, like, one, was this guy an alien? Then next we're
Yep.
wondering, has this guy been privy to information of somebody who knows, you
Yeah.
know, or can talk to these people with this technology or these aliens? It's very interesting, man. I mean, that's a deep rabbit hole dive you should go on if you're interested in aliens at all.
And again, I think back to Men in Black, the movie Men in Black, where it was everywhere, but Tommy Lee Jones's character is like, "Yep, but we need to keep this hidden, right? We need to keep this hidden." And so it's like aliens exist, and I still have to finish my 2023 taxes, and I still have to go grocery shopping later, and you know, I still have to pay my kids' college tuition. And so there's all of this life is happening in the interim, where it's like, okay, aliens, got it, cool, and I still have something I have to do tomorrow, right?
Right.
And so, like, yeah,
Well, you know, Alan, I could talk to you for hours, man. You're such an awesome guest. I'd love to have you back on sometime. Uh,
sure,
but right now, I'd like to allot you your time to tell my listeners and the listeners, probably not millions, but I hope someday, right? The
yeah,
people
yep,
sitting at home, I'd like you to tell them how they can get a hold of you, some of the stuff that you're trying to promote, that sort of thing.
yeah. So, my consulting business is pretty active on LinkedIn. And my consulting business is called Adaptive Challenge Consulting, but you can also look it up, Alan Mueller, Alan M as in Mary, Ueller. We're doing a free webinar next week, and it's called Emotional Intelligence and Managing Up and Managing Down. And so I've had some amazing managers and I've had some crappy managers, and we're going to dive into that, right? And so how do you use emotional intelligence techniques to either be a better manager or manage up for your manager? So find Adaptive Challenge Consulting or Alan Mueller on LinkedIn. We're also on Facebook. We're also on Instagram, and we're also on TikTok. So we're on all of those things. And the free webinars, there's that one coming up. And then in April, I'm doing one on intersecting identities, right? Like I'm a white man, right? Every day I leave the house, I can't just be white one day and leave man at home. I'm both, right? And so how do we understand that better when we are in diverse work environments and stuff like that, just in simple terms. But yeah, that's some of what I've got going on. And the Myers-Briggs thing, if people are curious, I have a course. And so you can take an online course. It's through this thing called Teachable. And I promise you that it's funny and engaging, because again, I want to get people to laugh to help them learn better. And when you finish, you could be a better spouse, a better coworker, better leader, just better person, right? And so understanding personality differences is huge. So check me out. My website's adaptivechallengeconsulting.com. Check me out and connect with me. Yeah.
Awesome, man. And once again, with the Myers-Briggs thing, I mean, the best way for any of this stuff is just to talk about it, right? Just take the course, everybody. I learned a lot just talking to Alan the little time that we had here, and I hope that you guys did too. So, I know your time is important, and I just thank you so much for spending your time with us here today on the show. Thank you so much, Alan.
Great show, Cain. Thank you so much.
Take care, man.